By now I've heard this, and I don't. Was Hazel in your period or not anymore?
Yes.
So, you should know that it was not my intention to get it like super aggro. But you also have heard that it's really important that I prepare you for the actual AP exam, and you know, if they're like really crazy aggro, I'm all right with that. Because that's seriously what it's like on that day in May. So even though that was not necessarily appropriate and certainly not necessary, it is actually what you should expect. And now you've lived through it at least one more time. And so I feel sort of bad that it was so heavy and so hectic, but I also think it's kind of cool that you got to see what it's really like. So please note, Unit 5 is really strangely numerated. So the first assignment is 1 through 9, but is called assignment 5.4. And you'll do that one first. And it's questions 1 through 9, but it's 5.4 and it's due last. I know. Then 5.1 is the next few questions, but that's due next week. And 5.2, which is due tomorrow, is number like 23 to 28 or something. There's a lot of reasons why it's like this. I don't know if you guys realize that I often make changes to the unit. And so I've had to cobble the unit together kind of strangely. And so it's all clearly explained at the bottom of the packet. I'm just giving you a heads up that it's not intuitive. The first assignment is due tomorrow. And I've told you before that I don't like to do overnight assignments, so I didn't. I gave out the paper last Friday, giving you many, many hours of time before it's due. But for some reason, if you didn't grab the packet on Friday, heads up, in that case it is an overnight assignment. And remember, it's not numerically obvious. It is 5.2 that's due tomorrow. Yeah, it is. I'm not lying. Right there. Look, I said it. So that's not a typo. It's numbered funny. And I'm sorry if this violates your need for numerical sequentiality. But it's just that way.
What is the date that 5.4 is due?
To be determined. I'll post this sometime during the day today, so by tomorrow you'll see. It's definitely next week. Second and third?
For the endangered species assignment,
Yes.
you have to fill out like.
Yes, there'll be a board on. There'll be a list on the board tomorrow where you will sign up for your species. Not very much. The handout says it all. Remember, you have to sign up for your species tomorrow. Yes.
And then also, what chapter is 2?
I believe it's 7, and that should be on your.
Oh,
Yeah, chapter 7. So it's all explained at the bottom of the packet. I just wanted to point out that it's not sequential and thus not obvious. What else? Unit 5?
is this a 2?
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks. Technically, you will take the test, I believe, on the Tuesday. So like 2 Tuesdays from today. But it actually adds up to like 10 days of class or 9 days of class. And then like a kind of a random Monday and then that Tuesday. Yes? I think sometime at the beginning of next week, we might try to squeeze it in this Thursday. What else? Nothing else on this? Timing for Unit 5? Everybody's good with the paperwork and the due dates and the packets and all that?
What date is assignment 5.1?
Sometime next week. I don't know the exact date yet. Bueller? That was a good one. Okay. Look, we've created an upcoming events board, so I won't be interrupting class, and I also am not the weak link in the chain when I forget. From now on, the students that are organizing an event will put it up there, and then I'll try to put like an exclamation mark or an asterisk so you know to look up there. But it's all going to be on autopilot now on that board. We did not, however, get a paper for this, so I should tell you there is a free bouldering class for members of the Santa Barbara High School climbing club / team at the gym tonight at 6. So if you're interested, you go see Sydney, or send her an email, or a text message, or a Facebook message, and she puts you on the list. And if you're on the list, you get in for free. They rent you free shoes. They'll talk to you about how to boulder, what's safe, what's not safe, how to be polite at the gym, how to spot each other, and you get the whole night to boulder for free. The only catch is you got to tell Sydney that you're going. So either use the Facebook rock climbing team page, or send her a text message or an email or whatever you can do to notify her. So what is the value of biodiversity? I mean, we've talked about a lot of these before, yeah.
I don't know if I presented the question correctly, but does it reflect our happiness if we're in a beautiful, sustained environment we're happy or not? Is it barren environment?
I mean, it might. I think that I sure believe that. I'm not sure that that's necessarily been proven that our happiness is.
That's like a philosophy.
Right. Philosophically, I think you're onto something. Scientifically, I haven't heard that data.
Yeah.
But it is actually pretty clear that biodiversity does have aesthetic and moral value to many people. And so we do know, for example, that some people believe that biodiversity has a fundamental right to exist. We know that some of us find biodiversity visually appealing. And that's a really valuable economic thing, too. You can turn biodiversity into tourism dollars. You know, if you shoot the elephant, you're only going to sell the tusks once, and then you're out of elephant. But if you keep the elephant alive, you can build a tourism industry around that, and many countries have, and that's been a really good investment. You may have heard that Costa Rica made a really clear choice years ago that instead of using a one-time extractive model, they would build a long-term tourism model around their biodiversity, and it worked. They preserved the highest percentage of their national boundaries, and they've built a thriving tourism economy. They've gotten way more money out of their biodiversity than they could have by selling the lumber. Yeah?
Well, everything's connected, so preserve one thing, preserve another.
Yeah, this is actually a very scientific argument. And how does that come down to money?
Well, if you stop preserving, a land of a certain area that you cultivate on, I guess, then you could deplete the soil, and you deplete the soil, and you can't grow anything to begin with, so you couldn't sell it if you did.
Yeah, I mean, biodiversity supports ecosystems, and we need those ecosystems. And you should be able to explain scientifically how biodiversity supports ecosystems. Remember the thing about resiliency? Choices, more options to resist change. Humans cause change, and biodiversity helps the ecosystem weather those changes. So for example, we like seafood, and biodiversity gives us more seafood. Or we like lumber, and a biodiverse forest creates more lumber for us. So a lot of the resources we extract depend on healthy ecosystems, and those are made healthier by diversity. What else?
I was going to say medicine.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that used to be a whole industry. It was called medical prospecting. I'm not sure how much that happens anymore. But in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, one of the biggest employers of anthropologists, scientists that study humans, one of the biggest employers of an anthropologist was the pharmaceutical industry. Because they would pay someone, it's like, oh, you've researched the Yanomamo in Venezuela? Well, go ask them what they do for headaches and birth control and pain relief and anti-inflammatories. And if it turns out they have an interesting plant to cure that, bring it back so we can get medicines out of that, absolutely. We've only tested a very small percentage of our global biodiversity for medical value. The forest might hold the cure for cancer or a cheaper AIDS drug or something like that. And along those lines, can anybody think of other future values we could find in nature, like medicines? Like, where does all your food come from? Like, when we started growing it, where did it come from? Yeah, I mean, seeds that were growing in the ground. If somebody was like, hey, I wonder if we can eat that. And then it's like, hey, look, you can eat that. And then we make it into our food. But just like we haven't tested a lot of the things for medical value, we haven't tested a lot of them for edible value, too. There's probably a whole bunch of food varieties that we're not currently eating because we just haven't found them yet. And here's a crazy thought. Does anybody know what biomimicry is? Trying to mimic something natural, but it's not the environment. It's like a natural engineering solution. So, for example, do you guys know that we're trying to synthesize artificial spider webs? It's because it would make like really strong sutures, and you could build like suspension bridges that are much lighter and not as visually obtrusive.
Terrifying.
People have woven spiderweb material to make like bulletproof vests that are a lot thinner and more flexible and more comfortable for people in the military.
Did you shoot it and swing from buildings?
I guess. Yes, you could do the Spidey thing. But the point is that we develop things that are industrially valuable, that are inspired by nature. So like Mercedes made a super fuel efficient car that has a weird shape, and the shape came from a pufferfish. Pufferfish moves through the water with very little effort. So they're like, you could make a car that shape and it'd be more fuel efficient, and they were right. Clipper wind power in Goleta. They made the blades of a wind turbine that have little knobs on the leading edge, like that, on the leading edge, because apparently that makes the fins of a humpback whale more efficient. I don't know if you ever noticed that humpback whales on their dorsal fins have these like little knobs, and it lets them cut through the water better. It like organizes the turbulence so they're more efficient when they swim. So some nerds over at the wind turbine place were like, and they tried building that into the wind turbines, and you get more electricity with less wind. It's called biomimicry. We learn a lot from nature that we can turn into money. People have made cool paint, armor for, I already said that. Anyway, other cool ideas that exist in nature. So remember, economic potential based on aesthetics. Recreational potential based on aesthetics, medicine, food, and engineering innovations inspired by nature, and the ecosystems we depend on give us more stuff if they are more diverse. You should know that a lot of people don't get these concepts. So when you've got some environmentalists that's like, we got to spend $1 million to save the red-legged frog, People are like, why do I want to spend $1 million on a stupid frog? We can't even eat that thing. And it's an argument that you have to understand because I promise you, one way or another, the College Board will ask you that question. One way or another, this is going to show up on the AP test. Okay, so please remember your unusual numeration. We are going to start 5.4 today in class. Question number 1 literally starts like the first word. So get your papers together while I cue up the film. Biomimicry. Hey, Hayden, can you stop that video, please?